Joining me today
Hi.
is Tony Rambles. He is the host of the Living Numbers podcast. He's also a teacher, coach, and a father. He's here today to talk about his successful career and how does he maintain a healthy lifestyle, that work-life balance. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, Christine, good to see you again.
Yes, I had so much fun on your podcast, so I'm excited to have you here today. And, I love your quote. Everywhere I go, I'm a teacher.
Mm.
Where did that quote come from? Where were you? How old were you?
That kind of just came from when I started looking back at, okay, what do I want to do? Right. I had just got my degree. I was working at Chase Bank. I was having a great time, had great people around me. And so as I looked back over the constant, I was always a teacher, always training people, always bringing in the new people, doing stuff like orientation, always, I was always teaching. So naturally, when that quote came out, that's just who I am. I feel like whoever we are eventually just comes out, right? We can't contain it. It's going to eventually just spill over. If you're on anybody's show, eventually you're going to talk about running. You're going to talk about who you are and exercise and lifestyle because it's just you. So when I said that quote, everywhere I go, I'm a teacher, it's the truth. And we live our truth every day. So that's what happened.
Yes. And you knew that that was your calling. You knew this is what you want to do. And how
Mm.
does it, when you inspire others, when you are teaching and you are, you're a role model, how does that make you feel in the classroom to your podcast? And I think you bring your podcast to the classroom too, right? Yes,
I
that's
do. I
wonderful.
do. It makes me feel like I have purpose and I'm doing something that's bigger than just earning money, right? I could right now, if I wanted to, I could have a job that would pay me twice as much as I make teaching. Because of my dad and some other things that I've done in the past. But I feel like this job is going to give me the life that I want long term. Right. There are also other things that you can do. But when I'm in that classroom and I'm getting those kids to do the thing that they hate to do, which is talk in front of other people,
Yes.
and they start to get it and they start to learn it and they tell me like, okay, I'm better. I know for sure I'm better at this than I was before I got here. Those are the moments that we live for as teachers because sometimes you just feel like you just banging your head against a wall because, I teach high school kids and, we all have our days. We've all been teenagers before. So to have those days when the kids are like, yeah, I get it. Or man, Mr. Franklin, that was so fun. Like, I'm glad you did that. Or I'm glad you pushed me outside of my comfort zone. Those are the days that reassure you or reaffirm that you are doing the right thing. You've made the right decision and you're not just wasting your life.
Yes. And being a teacher, do you think you're born or you can be trained to be a good teacher? Because not all teachers are can be great teachers.
I think the teaching part, you can train. The people part, I think is something that you're born with. Like some people just have this ability to connect with others. They just get people. I think some of that you can learn, right? There's always this battle, nature versus nurture, right? And some kids, I see it all the time because there comes a point in my semester where I pick captains. So for the first 3, 4 month or so, I'm looking at, okay, who gets along with other people, who's a good communicator, and obviously who gets their work done. There's this trifold that has to happen in order for me to pick you as a captain. And some people, they just get it, right? They can work with the really smart kids. They can work with the kids who aren't as smart. They can work with the kids that are creative. So I think some of that is definitely like a God-given gift to just be able to connect with other people and this ability to be able to think creatively and teach people on the level where they are. right? Because some people, you can talk to them like adults. I have some 15 to 18-year-olds. I can talk just like I would talk to anybody else. There are some people you got to dial it back for, and that's okay, right? You got to meet people where they are. And so I think some of that, again, is a nature thing. And I think some of it is also a nurture thing where you learn it, you pick up things along the way, and you add them to your toolbox.
Oh, it's wonderful. And your podcast, I love the name, the living numbers. Like, how did, do you have a favorite number? And how did you come up with the name?
It's so funny because now people are like, are you a numbers guy? Do you believe in like numerology? And I'm like, absolutely, like, no. It's nothing like that at all, honestly. So when I figured I wanted to do a podcast, and I started to look at, what do I want my podcast to be about? Right? I could easily do one about sports. I could easily do one just about marriage or communication or friendship, relationships, that kind of thing. But I just knew how I work. I need to be able to talk about anything that I want to talk about, right? I don't want to get bored, pigeonholed into one area. Now, some people go, oh, well, you can take that and you can kind of insert stuff. And I go, well, I just want to talk about what I want to talk about, whatever it is that I find interesting. And if I find somebody interesting, I don't want to like kind of force them into this box where like they have to be a sports person because I have a sports show. So I had to find a through line. So what connects everything? What can you find in anything? And I feel like, or I have found, that numbers are always present. They're always present in anything that we do. You can find a number for, as I have done many, many, many times over. So that was just the key to open the door to a show where I could have anybody on and talk about anything that I felt was interesting. So that's where the numbers came from. And it became the Living Numbers podcast because it's life and it's numbers. And that's kind of the way that I mailed them all together.
Oh, that's wonderful. And who is your first guest?
Wow. Who was my first guest? My wife.
Oh,
My
that's
wife,
wonderful. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah. As a podcaster, you like, I gotta just try to get people on.
Yeah,
So,
that is wonderful. It's like sometimes, it's great because everybody has a
mm,
story and then keeping it in the family, right? And you're a father as well. And how do you
mhm.
balance, as a coach, as a teacher, as a podcaster, you have your successful show. How do you do? And you have music behind you, you got guitars. It's
Yeah, I can play those.
awesome.
So balance happens when you're intentional about how you spend your time. So when I leave from work, I more often than not, I do not bring work home. Even as a teacher, where this is kind of one of those jobs where a lot of people, they do, that the work goes home. You got to get stuff in, you got to get grades turned in, or you got to send that email. And I understand it. But depending on what you teach, it's a little bit easier. So I have a class, I get mostly everything done in class. So that helps for me to keep the balance. Um, it's a foundation, like you got to build from the ground up. My wife and I have always shared a lot of, not a lot of, all of the responsibilities around the home. And once we had our son, same thing, right? So I don't ever want to put everything on my wife with anything that we do. I just don't think that's fair. That's not how we run things. Other people do things differently. More power to you, but you have to work it out with your spouse. And so for us, it's a lot of shared um, time and energy and effort in getting things done. Um, I would say that sometimes you have to get rid of some things that you really enjoy doing. And I'm actually in the process of stopping coaching after 4 years. Yeah, bombshell. Because my wife is starting her master's program. Well, she's already started, and I will start my master's program here this summer. So there's no way I could have my show, have my son, have my wife, do the stuff with my church, find time to play basketball, and still have coaching. So that's the one thing that took up the most time. And I still enjoy coaching. I still enjoy the kids, but it's the thing that that obviously had to go when I had to take a look back on life. And sometimes it's a sacrifices of the things that you still really like to do
Mhm.
that keeps you in balance. So that's how I
Yeah.
do it.
Yes, and it's temporary that you may go back to be, a hoops coach,
Right.
but you played basketball, right? Can you tell us, our viewers and listeners, I mean, you love basketball. I understand you like softball as well? Yes.
Yes. Yes. So I still play basketball as much as I can, which is not that often. But I still like to play a lot, which sometimes you run into issues as a coach when you want to have the ball in your hands and you're supposed to be coaching. You got to kind of put the ball down. So
Mm.
that's like a funny dynamic between me and my head coach. He's like, Coach Franklin, no more ball. No more ball. Put the ball down, talk to the players, do whatever you need to do. No ball. So funny thing that has to happen a lot of times. Again, we talked about sacrifice already. But then I got into softball because of the
Mm.
people. So there were a couple of coaches, and you need a staff of like three, right? You got a freshman JV varsity team a lot of times. Varsity may have a tournament. You kind of need that one other person. So the two varsity coaches, awesome, great people. And so Franklin, we need one more person. And I'm like, okay, don't mind. I can drive the bus, I can help out, I can run practice when y'all are gone, whatever. And so those two people, one of them got married, just had her first child. Shout out to Coach Maddie. And then the other guy got a job closer to his home. So now here I am, the lone softball coach, very little knowledge about softball. And so obviously, thank God they brought somebody else in and I just help. But that part just comes from the people. The girls were great, the coaches were great. So I just wanted to go and help out. And so I'm in softball right now. I think my tan looks great.
Yes, yeah. Well, you mean you've always had a love for sports. Do you
Mm,
think
yes,
sport helps in other areas of your life, being so disciplined and managing your time as a teacher and a musician, and in the podcast, hosting your own podcast? Do you think sport is really, you know can be very helpful? It can give you lots of benefits, not only stay in shape, but
absolutely. Oh yeah, that's always like the best part, right? How to train your body. And we laugh at that, but just like I do, like as you get older, you really have to be more in tune with your body and what your body needs and what you need to do to keep it, in shape, up and running, right? And so I feel like the people who have played sports, they understand that a little bit better than the people who never did. Now, that's not to say that those people can't figure it out, but I feel like if you play from, in Texas, they start playing in middle school. So that's like seventh grade. I think that's like 12 years old. So if you play from 12 years old to 18 or 19 years old when you graduate, like you have these fine motor skills. You have this process of knowing how to train, what your strength should be, how fast you should be, what your weight maybe should be like, how your body should look when it's in great shape. So these things help you later on down the line, as opposed to someone who's never lifted a weight or who's never had to run or stretch, right? These very simple, basic things that we think as athletes, that's normal, no big deal. Other people don't feel that way because they've never had to put their body in those positions and under stress to know, like, have you pulled a muscle? Is something broken? Like these things are very helpful. The other part is the mental part, right? Being a part of something that's bigger than you, understanding how to sacrifice, okay? Understanding that a lot of what you do in sport is mental, right? Can you be mentally tough, withstanding the pressure, the stress, okay? Learning how to deal with people who are not like you, people who are from different backgrounds, people who may not be as intellectual as you are, but are great players. Like, how do you connect with those people? So, sports teaches you a lot about how to deal with success, how to deal with failure, setbacks. What if the coach hates you, even though you're a good player? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you handle that situation? Right? Are you um, what does your character look like now that you're in a compromising situation that may not be your fault? Like as a kid, a teenager, like you have little control over what happens. Are your parents involved? Like, do you have somebody backing you up? So these are just things off the top of my head, and some from my own situation, that sports helped me to be experienced in these areas. Because I don't think you can ever be perfect, but you can be experienced and go, oh, okay, I remember when I was in this situation, this is how I got through it. So now let me use that to help me get through, being laid off or being in an interview looking for a job. So I think sports definitely helps you in many different areas, not just physical, but mentally and emotionally as well.
Yeah, so nutrition too. I mean, Tony, can you share your nutrition tips? Because you're an
Mm.
athlete, you're a coach. As we know, we've been listening and watching you. But yeah, tell us about your nutrition.
So Mark, nutrition is a funny thing because I get comments on it all day. So one of
Yeah.
my like golden rules is when you leave the house, you have to take enough food to last you until you get home. So that may be a lunch, snacks, and you should know how much your body needs, what your calorie intake needs to be in order to be successful throughout your day, right? If you're tired and you feel like you don't have any energy, like you may not be eating enough food. And even when you're on a diet, right, or you're on a strict nutritional plan, you need to have enough food to get you through your day. Like you should not be starving yourself. You shouldn't feel bad because you're not eating enough. That's thing number one. And I eat all throughout the day. So fruit, I always take typically 2 bananas. I take an apple, and I kind of made this new like trail mix for myself where you
Oh,
have raisins, peanuts, and regular Cheerios. No honey nuts, right? I save all the sugar for the ice cream I eat later.
yeah.
So just regular Cheerios. And so I have I think the canisters are like maybe 2 cups each. So I take 2 of those, and maybe I'll have like some peanut butter crackers. And for my actual lunch, I take a salad. It's not necessarily a salad because I typically will heat it up, but it's spinach, carrots, some Parmesan cheese, I think, and some kind of meat, some protein. So that could be fish, that could be chicken, that could be beef, whatever meat you want to put in there, because I eat meat. So I'll put that in there, and sometimes I'll take it as a salad, and I'll do it in Italian dressing. Never anything creamy because that stuff has more fat. But if you're going to use that stuff, just use a little bit. And sometimes I'll take it more like I'll just throw some water on it, heat it up, kind of wilt that spinach just a little bit, salt and pepper, and we're good to go. So I make sure I take a nice lunch and I take enough snacks to last me throughout the day. Oh, can't forget coffee and water every
Yeah.
day.
No, and you know what? Do you love to cook?
I hate cooking. I do
Yeah.
not like
But it's just like the what you bring is so it's wonderful. I mean, it's very helpful that you're sharing this. You should write a cookbook or put it on your website because it's
oh
really great, Tony. Yeah, so just properly fueling your body and you'd rather not starve to death, bring enough food, as you said.
yes. Keep
Yeah,
it
no,
simple. Keep it
yeah.
simple. Like so many people try to do too much. I had a
Mhm.
nutrition teacher in
Ah,
college. My
yeah.
very first teacher, he said, you literally don't have to do that much. Okay. Fruits, vegetables, protein. If you can kind of stay away from the carbs as much as you can, like you don't have to cut them out, but try to eat less processed foods,
Yeah.
right? And minimize the sugar, you should be fine. If you can just keep it that simple and do those things, obviously you need to exercise. You don't need to spend 3 hours in the gym, but walk. I always tell
Mhm.
people to speed walk. I don't know. You may be better at this. Maybe I can run this by you, but I'll go, okay, if you just speed walk, it's less on your joints than jogging, right? It's much easier on your body, and you don't have to run. But if you get a good fast tempo walking, it's much easier on your body and you can still burn the same kind of calories. Am I off base with that, Christine?
No, no, Tony, I mean, no, it's great. It's low impact, is like elliptical, I understand, like elliptical is great as well. But
Mhm.
yeah, no, it's as you know, we get older too, we have to watch nutrition, how we exercise, and you know that as an athlete and a coach, well, former coach of the basketball soon.
I'm
Oh,
still coaching right now.
still a coach, still coaching. But I want to know more. I mean, I mean, you play your guitars. Can you share your how you got involved and is it
Mm.
acoustic electric? It's electric, right? Behind you? Your
So these two are electric.
yes.
This one I got for my birthday from my wife. Shout out.
Okay.
And this one I got from a friend because I told him I play guitar, a friend from church. And he was like, "Oh, I got a guitar for you." Like he just gave it to me. The people, sometimes those connections can bring those
Yeah.
great gifts. I also have two acoustic guitars, one over here, one over here.
How
I
many
bought
do you
those for
have?
my four.
Tony. Oh my goodness,
Four.
because I thought you were right. That's great. No, I just so do you sing as well? You sing and
uh,
play the guitar? Oh, that's
well, okay, so I sing at my church. I've been singing at my church for about a decade now. Save for the time that we were in China, my wife and I. So obviously I didn't sing there. But I sing at my church. I have been a singer for, I guess, my entire life. And the guitars came up because I'm just a big fan of music. And my favorite genre is rock music.
yes.
So like 70s and 80s rock and roll, I really love 90s alternative music. It's just, I love the electric guitar. So I just decided I'm going to learn how to play. And so I do know how to play it. I'm not the person that's gonna, break the guitar out when you have people over and sing songs. No, that's definitely not happening. Not at this point anyway. But it's one thing that I would love to. I'm going to get back to this summer because you have a kid, and what we talked about earlier, we talked about sacrifice. Some things just got to go, and so I'm not like retire or anything. It's just on hold for a little bit. So I'll be back playing this summer. I'll probably post some videos on the old social media.
Yeah, you can bring it to class too. Your music.
I
Yes.
have before.
Yeah, music therapy. Music is it heals. It's yeah, that's great, Tony. And I want to know more about your podcast. Is
Mhm.
there a favorite guest or I don't know if that is really
I have a favorite. I wouldn't necessarily. I have two different episodes that I can point to that made me feel like I was really accomplishing something. So, episode 30, I had my friend of a decade plus now, and Pastor Carlos. I had this episode 30 was 30 little things I'm thankful for. And so, yeah. So check this out. It was more like not like I'm thankful for my family or my wife or that my job, not that kind of stuff. The stuff where when you're on your way to work and you don't hit any red lights, it's like, yes, that's a good one. Okay, when you're in the classroom and you teach somebody something and they get it and then they implement it, you're like, yes. So the little victories that we have, that when you're taking a picture and the lighting is just right, and you're like, yep, that's the one I want to post. Right. So these little victories, throughout your day or throughout life, those little things. I think one of them was this is probably my favorite one. For people who make their coffee at home like we do, when you get the coffee and the creamer mixture just right and it's not too hot and you can drink it right away, it's perfect. Those little things. So when I made that episode and we ran through that episode's probably hour and 20, 25 minutes. I felt like there was such a creative thing to come up with. And I'm really proud of that episode and what we did on that episode. So that's one of them. The second one was, I think, is episode 62. I had Dr. Gans Farans on, Dr. Gans, I think his name is. Shout out. That guy was so amazing. He's a psychologist, and I come up with my numbers and everything. And I felt like this guy, who is a doctor, who has his own, he's written books, he's a speaker. this person thought that my show was good enough to take their time out for and to come over to my little corner for an hour, hour and a half. And he just talked about how great the show went. So for people who have stature, I felt like would come and do my show. It made me feel like I was doing something right. Because when you have a show, you're like how good is it? There's the comparisons. I feel like I'm doing something that's really well. We're doing something well. I have a great show. It's entertaining. But when you have professionals who speak for a living, they say you're doing something good and your production is great and you ask great questions. That helps to reaffirm your belief that you're really doing something good. So those two episodes are the ones that stand out a lot for me personally.
Oh, that's wonderful. And Tony, like you have merchandise. I notice you have a nice cap on. So if
Mhm.
people want to check your show out, and where can they go? And as I said, merchandise and and what's next for you too you can answer all that.
So people can find my show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, all the big dogs out there. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I post a lot of stuff there. I post clips there, stuff about my life. My son is on there, my wonderful son. And you can buy merch at the Living Numbers Pod shop. That's
Yeah.
what it's called on Etsy. And typically, all of those links are in the description of my episodes. So you can always find that stuff. I have t-shirts and hoodies on the shop, on the store. So that's where you can find me.
Yes. And what is next for you, Tony?
Next is grad school. So I'm getting my master's in communications, of course. That just aligns with who I am and what I do. So I felt like that is definitely the right course for me. And once I get my master's, the next step from there is to teach communications college courses. So that is the next thing professionally. And of course, to continue to put out episodes. I have 80 plus episodes now.
Wow.
So, yep, 2 years and running. So to keep the great things going and also to start something new.
Yes. And Tony, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I would say for the people out there listening to this wonderful show, don't forget about the great people along the way. A lot of times we can just want to be successful and sacrifice everything at all costs. And I feel like that is a mistake because you can get to the top and there's nobody to celebrate with. And what kind of life is that? So the people who are important, keep those people around. And when you run into people who are great, um, be intentional about building those relationships. I'm not saying sacrifice success to party, right? I think that's a bit extreme, but you're going to meet some great people along the road in life. And so I would say just be intentional about keeping those relationships going and making the most of them because you never know who you're sitting next to or standing next to or who you may be in a room with. So I would say definitely don't forget about connecting with people in real life and I guess online too.
Yes, likewise. No, I had so much fun interviewing you today, and I'd like you to come back, Tony.
Anytime, Christine.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.